Well, what red flags are you looking for in the stock market and the economy? Today we're going to take a look. Stay tuned for Prudent Money. Good afternoon. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thanks so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. Well, if you got a question for me, please go to the website at www.prudentmoney.com. We'll always make sure that you know that's there for you. It is a good resource, and it costs you nothing to ask a question, and I would love to hear from you today. Love to hear what's on your mind and how we can either point you in the right direction or help you ourselves. Either way, it's all at prudentmoney.com. Well, I received an email that actually was one of those emails where it's a small question, but a very, very big answer. And I want to talk about this today, about some of the red flags that I'm looking for when assessing the stock market. You know, one of the things about managing money and investing money is that you're always constantly looking at what's happening, why, and asking the question, why is it happening? What's the impact of it happening? Today, as you can imagine, there are so many moving pieces that red flags are all over the place. But there's one red flag that I look at a little bit more closely than others. And before I get to that, I do want to float in there a disclaimer that none of this is meant to be, and I'll talk about things like this a lot on the program because I want to give you the other side of the story so that you can look at what I'm talking about, whether you agree with it or disagree with it, and you can compare it to the other side of the story that you're more familiar with. And that's what you're probably going to see is that there's a story or a theme that you're already familiar with, and I'm telling you what the opposite of that is. It's really that simple. And then through prayer and meditation, you can figure out yourself what you feel that God is leading you as far as what road you go down to research more on what your questions are about or whatever that might be. So I'm not trying to be what I call a gloom and doomer. I'm just telling you what the other side of the story is. Some of it, not all of it by any stretch, but some of it is factual, and the majority of it is just my opinion. So, and I'm not married to my opinion. I'm not trying to be right, you be wrong. And that's one of the reasons why I won't debate so much of this, because it's all basically an opinion. In fact, most of what you hear on news conferences and press releases, or you read on press releases, or financial stories in various resources, are really based on opinion. And you got to remember that so that you don't confuse opinion with fact. Only time gives us what turns the opinions into facts. So at this point, we just do the best we can and make sure that we look at both sides and figure out which side is, from a stewardship standpoint, makes the biggest impact. So there you have it. So not trying to be a gloom and doomer. I just want to make sure that you understand that. But the biggest red flag really comes down to confidence. What is the government doing, which typically shows up in the stock market as well? But what are they doing to instill confidence? And that's what is just leaving me scratching my head, especially right now, because nothing that they are doing is inspiring confidence. Well, we can start with the removal of SNAP benefits. We can talk about cutting out paychecks of key members of the economy, air traffic controllers, our military, and so many other of our important occupations that if they go to work, and they have to go to work, most of them, I guess, or they're expected to be there, that they're not going to get paid for it until this whole government shutdown thing is resolved. And I guess that's at the heart of the matter, is that in order to solve the problems of the government, they have to play politics. And as I said the other day, this is not about making, or for the longest period of time, when they're sitting on two different sides of the table, it's about making me right and making you wrong, or making me right and making you wrong. And it won't be until they can publicly come to a situation which they're doing from a political standpoint a beautiful job of it today, is that they're moving closer together, synergy, and they're going to come up with this awe-inspiring agreement that's going to fix everything. The thing I think that's most the most unnerving about all of this is that it's usually the government's fault. Healthcare is without a question a government's fault. They've let it go. It's who's running what, and it's a system that definitely needs to be fixed. And they voted in and allowed for the subsidy plan that really makes up Obamacare. And now they just want to take it away. I get why they want to take it. They want to fix it. But I don't think that you can fix something by just saying all of a sudden saying, okay, we're going to jack your premiums up by 25%. And that's the hard line approach. In my position looking at this, I think they've got to have a gradual way to fix the system. And if they would just get rid of the fraud and the waste and so much of what makes the system what it is today, I think that they would go a long way in getting this problem solved. That's a whole nother soapbox. We don't need to get in on that. We're talking about red flags. So there's a couple of other things that you have to keep in mind that can continue the situation with red flags. Number one, the Supreme Court ruling on tariffs. If that comes back and is ruled against the Trump administration that they did something, they overstepped their bounds and they have to give the money back, I don't even know what that would look like. But it wouldn't inspire confidence, that's for sure, and it wouldn't. It would. I think about it a lot and come to different conclusions in my mind, but it's tough to know what will happen because of that. They say his plan B is to piecemeal pieces of legislation together that gives him the ability to do that. But I would think that would be easy to strike down, and they would definitely try to do that. But confidence is the most important thing. Without confidence, you put the economy and the markets at risk. And of course, as we know, we don't really have a good idea of what inflation's doing. We really don't have a good idea of what consumer confidence is doing, and especially don't have a good idea of what the employment or unemployment numbers look like. So we're kind of flying blind here, as trying to figure out what's really going on with the economy. But we want to look outside for other agencies, separate entities that come up with the same conclusions and have a method of doing so, and kind of rely on that data to get an idea. So think of it this way: confidence drives positive or negative action, which is usually investing or spending money, which makes the world go around as far as the economy goes, which is directly correlated with expected income. So confidence is equal to what drives positive or negative action, which is directly correlated with expected income. In other words, is directly correlated with jobs. And that's been a very big concern, because any jobs numbers that we've gotten don't look so good. But we'll talk about that here in a minute. And this, of course, has created questions of as far as artificial intelligence goes. What happens to the elimination of jobs? I mean, where are the jobs going to go? What's going to absorb the jobs? Thinking about people that their careers are tied to this, and that AI could be eliminating some of those careers. Now, once again, I'm not trying to be doom and gloom about this. I'm just offering up the other side of the argument. So, Wallet Hub is a company that we follow. They do very good analysis, and this is what they wrote. Recent volatility in the economy and the stock market, driven by tariffs and mass layoffs, has led to a plunge in consumer confidence. In fact, consumers feel over 9% less confident about their financial outlook this month than they did 1 year ago. While this is the seventh sharpest yearly drop in consumer confidence recorded since December 2020. And of course, December 2020 was COVID. This was the COVID era, and in fact, kind of just really that was really heating up. And so to be talking about the same similarity of numbers between then and now is probably not a good thing. Some key statistics from this index is real estate popularity is in decline. We talked a little bit about this with Mark Pfeiffer when was on the program last time, and I think people are getting burnt out on the interest rate story. Is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? And getting burned out on the pressure behind making the right decision. That's obviously creating a lot of pressure. We'll get back to this in just a second. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Up against a break. Stick around. I'll be right back. Hello, this is Bob Brooks. Proverbs 22:3 and Proverbs 27:12 are the exact same verse word for word. I call them the stewardship verses of risk. A prudent person foresees danger and takes precautions. The simpleton goes blindly on and suffers the consequences. On the Prudent Money Radio Show, we teach about risk, how to identify it, how to figure it out, and what to do about it. We believe that to be a prudent steward, you have to be a good risk manager. Listen to the Prudent Money Radio Show on Bible School Radio 91.3. Prudent Money, home of the modern day steward movement.
Dynamic, practical, life-changing.
There's no point in going to church and not letting the Christ who gave birth to the church on the day of Pentecost change your life.
Join us each day as Pastor Paul Shepherd applies the timeless truth of Scripture to everyday life. It's Destined for Victory on this great station.
Weekday afternoons at 3:30 here on Bible School Radio, KDKR.
This is Rob Randall, your host and teacher of the Invisible War radio program. The Invisible War is the study of God's Word on how to walk in Christ's victory in the spiritual battles we face against the powers of darkness. Join me every Sunday morning at 9 right here on KDKR and KYJC in Commerce, your station for life.
Welcome back. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. Listen, if you got a question for me, I want you to go to the website at www.prudentmoney.com. Go to the top of the page, and there's a link that says Ask Prudent Money. Click through there. We'll get you taken care of, and take that very seriously. No, it doesn't go into a black hole, never to be seen again. We do read all the messages and the emails, and I do answer myself. Have been for a very, very, very long time, and continue to do that today. We're talking about what's the main red flag that I'm watching and looking out for that could affect the economy and could affect the stock market, and it's simply consumer confidence. You don't have a consumer that's very confident when you have this much talk about layoffs and when you have actual layoffs happening. That tends to whittle away at consumer confidence. And if you don't have a confident consumer, you don't have one buying cars, you don't have one buying real estate or doing consumer spending, and then that affects the economy. You can kind of see the direct correlation between all of it. So what a mess It truly is. If you look at everything that's going on, and are we going to get a big surprise when they release the numbers and get us caught up that things have been very much downhill? I think the numbers will look a little bit better, not great, but look a little bit better than they're expecting them to look. But we'll wait and see. I don't think looking forward though they're going to get any better. I just think it's not going to be a drastic plunge or anything like that. But what we were talking about before the break is that real estate popularity is in decline. Home buying interest among consumers decreased by almost 18% in October 2025 compared to last year, marking the fourth sharpest decline in interest on record since December 2020. Decreasing interest in auto purchases, the share of consumers who expect to buy a car in the next 6 months is nearly 17% lower in October 2025 compared to last year. This is the fourth highest drop in auto interest recorded since December 2020. You can see everything is going in the wrong direction. I mean that's the problem that we face. And then finally, weaker sense of job security. People's confidence in having a job in the next 6 months is almost 10% lower in October 2025 compared to last year. And this is the second highest drop in the level of job security sentiment registered since, once again, December 2020. Less new employment opportunities. The share of consumers who feel new employment opportunities are abundant is over 7% lower in October 2025 compared to last year. Large purchases are not a priority. Same thing. In October 2025, consumers' likelihood of making a large purchase in the next 6 months is roughly 6% lower than it was last year. And then this unemployment number that we follow is from Challenger and Gray, and it says last month marked worst October for layoffs in more than 20 years. Technology firms led private sector job cuts as employers look to cut costs and address AI. Now that is obviously a concern as far as artificial intelligence and what this does to the job market. We talked a little bit about this last week as far as companies, for the most part, are not coming out and just disclosing that, hey, we're laying people off because of AI. They're using different futuristic type wording that we've really never heard in a situation where a company is cutting jobs because of the economy, which is typically why you cut jobs. This was a report from Target. It says Target to cut corporate jobs by 8% in an effort to reduce, quote, and inside quotes, complexity. Target to cut corporate jobs by 8% in an effort to reduce complexity. What in the world does that mean? The Wall Street Journal reported late Thursday that Target plans to lay off some 1,000 global corporate employees and eliminate 800 open positions, or around 8% of its corporate ranks. You know, it's just interesting how, what levels of management that they're laying off, and that they're doing it in this fashion. UPS, come to find out, has eliminated 48,000 jobs this year so far. Now, this was from April. This says, in April, UPS announced that it was looking to slash about 20,000 jobs and close more than 70 facilities as it drastically reduces the number of Amazon shipments it handles. At the time, the company said that it anticipated closing 73 leased and owned buildings by the end of June. The company noted that it is still reviewing the network and might identify more buildings to be shuttered. Buildings closing down. That, of course, has a direct effect on a lot of other things. But what's just jumped out at me, and I didn't really catch it. I think that this decrease in the business that they'll be doing with Amazon might mean that it's replaced by their own investment in AI. But who knows? That's just speculation. Then Amazon had this on their site. Last year, Amazon posted a note about strengthening our culture and teams, explaining how we want to operate like the world's largest startup. See, this makes no sense if we're talking about the economy, which I don't think we are. The importance of having the right structure to drive that level of speed and ownership, and the need to be set up to invent, collaborate, be connected, and deliver the absolute best for customers. Many of you have put significant effort into that work of strengthening your organizations by reducing layers, increasing ownership, and helping reduce bureaucracy. We've already been seeing the results. You'd be surprised how many words were left out of sentences, and who you would think that this was put on the company website. It would be grammar would be perfect, and you wouldn't be missing words. That's just a side thought. And many Amazonians, ooh, that's a big one, feeling more ownership, and the S team, and I appreciate all the work you've done, whoever the S team is. The reductions we're sharing today are a continuation of this work to get even stronger by further reducing bureaucracy, removing layers, and shifting resources to ensure we're investing in our biggest bets at what matters most to our customers' current and future needs. Now, that's just another way of saying we're going to be laying people off, and but they won't come out. They really won't come out and say it. They just want to get the world. You can remember they're a publicly traded stock, so their concern mostly, and this may not be fair for me saying this, is share price, but it's typically what it is. Amazon said it would cut 14,000 corporate staffers this year in a mass layoff aimed at readying the company for adoption of AI technology. They wait to the very last sentence of the corporate release to say that. So here's what I think we're looking at. As I said last week, there's no question there's going to be layoffs. But the companies that are going to be laying off people, I truly believe this, are the companies that are really set up for the implementation of AI, like Amazon.com, no question, UPS, no question. But that doesn't make up all of corporate America. And I said that last week that the lack of understanding, fear of drastic change, rising unemployment. If you get this transition wrong, but if a company does, that could have severe consequences. I think they'll be very slow in their implementation if you're not already a technology company, or if you're not already equipped for AI, which I don't think most companies are. And when I say equipped, there's a lot of companies using AI, but to lay people off because of it, I just don't see massive layoffs at this point. But then again, I've been surprised at how quickly this story is evolving. So I'm going to leave you with with these two verses, and then we're going to pick up where we left off tomorrow, and I want to talk about what do you do to prepare for any kind of change in employment, so to get you that information. But in Jeremiah 29:11, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." And the second verse is Philippians 4:6-7. "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your request to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Think about that. I want to talk a lot about this tomorrow. But you have a choice, and Philippians brings you one side of that choice, and Jeremiah brings you that same side of that choice, or the other side of the choice is to worry yourself sick about it. But we'll be talking about this in more detail tomorrow. This is Bob Brooks. If you got a question for me, please go to the website at www.prudentmoney.com and send a question in, and we'll get you taken care of. Today, we are all out of time. Till we do meet again next time, keep the faith and have a great rest of the day.
That's all the time we have for today. Questions or comments for Bob, or to find out more great information like what you've just heard, visit www.prudentmoney.com. Be sure to join Bob Brooks again for the next edition of Prudent Money.